From mod management to splicing mods, a great number of changes are coming that will impact one of the most fundamental and dynamic parts of our game.
Today, Team Money and I are pleased to welcome Warrior from Warrior Presents, whose mod guide is a staple for the game with over 145,000 views and climbing. He's also a game changer, and we are very grateful he's given us this opportunity to explore what these changes to mod mean for new players, free-to-play players, and also those avid theory crafters and meta breakers among us. Welcome, Warrior.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with your general impressions of the system of mod management, the filter system, mod loading, that sort of thing.
So my first impression is they want a general populace to kind of engage in mods on another level than what's currently been happening. And we know with the most competitive players, they already engage at the level that Capital Games and EA want us to participate in. But there's actually a vast majority of players that are either free to play or small dolphins that either haven't been able to unlock certain aspects of mods because of the restriction with characters. And unfortunately, that then restricts certain players from really experiencing what mods had to offer. For example, having a very tenacious character and witnessing them really rebuking the debuffs. It's a very fun experience, but a lot of characters don't fully grasp that because they haven't got their tenacity mods yet. And or maybe it's crit chance for them, and they haven't had a chance to get their critical chance up high enough to make a difference for, let's say, a character such as Wicket.
And I'm not sure if you're alluding to this, but I think that one of the positive things they've done is removed the requirement for certain teams for those mods. And so that's going to speed up new players farming these mods a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably one of the best things is it's going to create engagement from all levels of players, from the beginners to the most elite of the elite, such as you guys. And it's also going to open up and free up the ability for them to be able to experiment with more of the mod sets. Now, the only concern for anybody would be, well, we had to earn it with unlocking the Jawas and everything else like that. Games change, they evolve, and we all have to embrace that change. And if they decide this is the change they're doing, it should be okay with all of us who played, because at the time that was how we accessed it. But it's for the good of all guilds that they open this up for all of your other guild mates who maybe haven't been and aren't able to contribute in a way that they will now be able to contribute as far as their characters being modded and modded correctly. So it will just increase the overall ability for all guilds to really have everybody kind of more participatory when it comes to mods and setting up your characters for success.
And so while we're talking about new players, what do you think? How do you think this mod system will impact new players, kind of generally speaking? And what would be your advice to players who are just about to kind of unlock or just in their first kind of couple of months of farming mods, for the next 6 months out? What's your advice to them?
Well, so that was kind of a two-tiered question. The first part is kind of how do you see them interacting with it, and I think I kind of look at it like the 4x speed in the game. When I started, there was no such thing as 4x speed, and everything was just drastically slow, and we had to sit there and painfully watch a battle take place and literally time out at times because of how slow things were. Now, fast forward to today, we have a 4x button. You can go 2x, 4x, and you can watch it just fly by and get a battle done in 60 seconds to 2 minutes, and it's now the new normal, and we're happy with that, right? I see mods as the same thing. It needs to evolve to a more efficient environment so people can appreciate what they have. And I think in 6 months to a year, people are going to look back and go, wow, this is super efficient. I really appreciate it. I know for experienced players and beginners alike, they're going to be appreciative of all of the new enhancements, because being able to create a mod loadout. What that means is create 6 mods for one particular character, name it, and then be able to pull it off at any time you want and be able to place it onto a different specific character makes a massive difference. Now, we can always sit here and cherry pick what we like and don't like about the new build out, because you can't make everybody happy. But overall, with the feature-rich content that they have, it's a exceptional, build for both the beginners and experienced players alike. What I love most for the beginner player is the ability for them to, without any knowledge of mods, have a system of recommendation for them to see what the computer kind of sees as what's needed. So for example, if you have a character and you're completely lost. You say, I don't really know what this character needs as far as a mod set. You can ask for the recommendation, and the computer will make 2 mod set suggestions, which you can then take or leave. But at least you now have a general idea of what should be going on the particular character that you're working with.
I mean, there are characters. I've played this game for almost 3 years now. There's characters I have no idea how to use, so I might get a little use out of that too. You know, like Plo Koon, like a lot of the old school Jedi, Eth Koth. I have no idea how to build those characters.
Yeah, what if there's like an amazing suggestion that all of a sudden makes Eth Koth relevant? It's like, oh, I didn't know he needed an offense and a tenacity set. Now he's meta.
Wishful thinking.
Yes, indeed. And okay, so where you're well known for your free-to-play farming guides, and I was quite shocked. I looked at your 2017. I know you have a new one out for 2018, but your 2017 one has 302,000 views, and it makes me remember how many people are actually playing this game. So like that's fantastic. From what you know regarding farming materials for the mods, how do you think this might impact energy budgeting for free-to-play players? Because it's the new energy is not going to be able to be used for 600s. It's kind of another energy demand on us. How do you think that's going to work in for free-to-play?
Well, I'm super excited you asked that. First off, I know a lot of people know me as a Kraken. I am. I have been in the past. At least this year, I'm down to a whale status. Thank you, Lord. But last year and year before, I was definitely Kraken status. I mean, I'm at 4.3 million GP. So a lot of people feel like there's a potential for me having lost my free-to-play perspective. But I can assure you, not only did I run a free-to-play account for well over a year to maintain that mentality, but I'm constantly doing roster reviews, as well as I'm constantly. I have friends, and pretty much everyone I know that plays, and there's like 5 people that I know that play close to me, they're all free to play, and they all struggle really hard daily, and they're constantly asking me, and there's like, I look at their accounts like, I really can't help you, man. You know what I mean? Like $100 and I'll fix your problem. No, but I'm for reals excited to always keep that mentality, because there are a great majority of people that will spend little to no money in this game, and they want an experience that's going to be similar to that what I have. And so this new system is actually amazing, and this is why. They're pulling the energy out and separating it. So it used to be Cantina energy, and it did both mods, and it did your Cantina. The issue with that is for free-to-play, you're already dividing so much, and you have so little to work with, that if you want to do a character but you need mods, you have to make that decision. Am I going to mod farm today, or am I going to character farm today? Well, that won't be a decision being had anymore in the future. They'll get to do both at the same time, no matter what. That is so critical for somebody who's free to play in this game and new, to be able to continue the development of the Cantina characters and it not hinder their mod management. Now, if they are adding new, ship energy, and they're adding new mod energy and all this stuff, what happens is they're giving us so much free energy that without even trying, we hit the 600. And the whole point of a 600 was to show activeness of an individual. And so they're not going to count the new ship energy or this mod energy as towards your 600. But I can assure you, getting your 600 will be equally as easy as it is today in the future, because those energies didn't exist prior. So you're going to get the 600 the same way that you always have, but it frees you up. I mean, like, we now can get high-end gear in nearly every store, and you can build like a Mark III stun cuff in like 3 days, free to play. I'm not kidding. I mean, I've had two of my friends do it in 3 to 5 days, where they built it because they were able to buy chunks, 5 here and 5 there, and they farmed for 11 of them, and all of a sudden they get some in a raid, and next thing you know, they've got a stun cuff. And for me, it was like a month when I first started. I mean, it took forever because it wasn't in any of the other stores. So I feel like the game is in a really good place and is heading into an even better place, because they're constantly seeing the struggles of the players and trying to come up with solutions. Now, do they sometimes take a step back or two? Yes, for sure. Every good developer of a game will definitely make some mistakes as well. And I guess the biggest thing isn't, do they make mistakes? It's more like, do they recognize what they've done as a mistake, and are they willing to correct it? And I think for the most part, their track record speaks to the fact that they want to not harm the community overall. They want to make us happy, and they're looking to make these big changes to try to help us not hinder or hurt our progress in the game.
I love the post that they're making right now. The little tongue-in-cheek title of the mod post was, a brief post on mods or whatever it was, and it was just pages and pages and pages of information. And I think that they recognize we will generally, the community will generally get on board with something if we kind of understand what is happening first and then why it's happening too. And they've just been getting better and better at doing that, and at kind of, I think, putting more resources into their communications and more time into their communications. And I think it's paying off in the longevity of the game. So yeah, I appreciate that every time something comes out or they retract something and apologize for it, I'm just like, good for you, hooray, because I see it as a real benefit. I would like this game to last for a long time, considering the resources that I've put into it as well. So, okay, good, Maurice, do you want to take it away with some of the theory crafting stuff?
All right, we're going to dive into a little bit more of the theory crafting, as she just said, and the significant changes to the set bonuses and the secondary stats, right? So when you move these mods from 5 to 6 dot, they've kind of switched up a lot of the stats and kind of nerf isn't the right word, but they've definitely amped up some of the other stats and left, the most important stats like offense and speed. They didn't really touch too much. I guess out of all the changes concerning the stat changes like defense, tenacity, potency, any of them, which ones do you think are the most impactful?
Good question, and it's there's kind of two things happening to the mods, right? First off, without going to the 6 dot mod, just keeping them at 5 dot, the sets are going to be improved. And then in addition to that, when you move your mod set from a 5 to a 6 dot mod, there's going to be an additional improvement. So I want to just clarify there's two distinct enhancements that you can make, but to be able to kind of see where the current set is to where the current set's going, health is going up by 5%. I think that's solid that they're creating a little bit of an enhancement to health. Defense is going up 5 times or 500 times better than it was. And that's because the defense mod set was really wasted. You would have to go, and I've done it, you had to go all in on 3 sets of defense, all the defense secondaries you could find, plus defense percentages versus protection to try to get that to mitigate the damage that people were doing on a tank. And it was difficult, if at best, to get to 50% defense, which is relatively negligible when they were including a bunch of things like armor penetration, or defense penetration and things like that with characters, because it's like, well, why did I do that for? So to see them raise it from 5% to 25% is huge. Now people can accurately mod their tanks appropriately with defense sets. It makes sense, right, to put defense on a tank. Well, it didn't up to this point, so this is a really healthy change. Critical damage and speed are not seeing a change, and that's because they've always been the most overpowered stat modifier in the game up to this point. Speed is obvious, and critical damage for the most part, because most damage dealers are physical damage, and so they have a natural higher critical chance rate, which allows for them to hit critically more times than not. And so critical damage, of course, is increasing their overall damage output the majority of the time. So they didn't make a change to that. Critical chance, though, surprising to me, I didn't feel like it needed a boost, but they did go ahead and move it from 5% to 8%, which is pretty significant in the scheme of things, especially if you're going all in on critical chance for a character. If you really want your character to guaranteed crit, you got to get into that 80%, 100% range, and that's almost impossible as it sits. With this boost, it's going to give you that ability to get over 80% critical chance. It seems kind of crazy, but when you're trying to be singularly focused with a character, sometimes crazy is what you're looking for. So 80% on, let's say, Wicket, again, I mentioned him earlier, it's really hard to mod him up that high to make sure he's always critting, but this will be not the case after this change. You'll be able to actually make that happen. Offense has gone up by from 10% to 15%, and they initially had played with it a little higher than that, and it was pretty dangerous. It actually made it to where crit chance and crit damage was wasteful, and offense was the only way to go. And so they kind of dialed it back down. And so currently, and it could change again, but currently they show that it's going to go up by about 5%. And that is going to help you with characters who maybe don't crit all the time, such as your special damage dealers who have a really low natural critical chance rate. You just put, solid offense. You guys are Sith Raid fiends better than even me, and you understand the offense mods much better in those types of raids, especially when you're sharing stats and trying to get one character to pull from everyone, such as, phase 3 of the Sith Raid. So offense has its place. The last two is potency and tenacity, and they did raise potency up by 5%. That's the only one of all the increases I actually disagreed with. And the reason for that is because we all know that, well, hopefully we know that all abilities have just an inherent 100% value, meaning that they are naturally going to apply, assuming there's nothing else involved. They just, if you're doing an ability block and it says apply ability block to that character, it has an inherent 100% chance. Of course, then people put tenacity out, and so you put potency on your character to overcome their tenacity to ensure you get to continue successfully applying that debuff. The best math for anyone to do to figure out your chance of resisting is doing tenacity minus potency equals your chance to resist. That's the simplest form of math you can do to figure out whether you're going to be able to survive or not those debuffs. But when you have a tenacity, let's say of 100%, and they have a potency of 80%, you have a 20% chance to resist. And they've made it to where that chance to resist can't go below the 15 percentile. So you're always going to have at least a 15% chance to resist. But in that scenario I just gave, it's only 20%. It's pretty bad. That means 4 out of 5 times you're going to get debuffed, and 1 out of 5 times you're going to resist. So tenacity didn't have a whole lot of value in the game prior to this. They recognized that the tenacity issue was there, and so if you noticed, starting with like Commander Luke Skywalker and Thrawn and some of these other new characters, Wampa and Kanan, they started integrating these high tenacity bonuses. The new bounty hunters get plus 50% tenacity, right? So they're now starting to try to make tenacity more relevant. And with these new mod sets, it's going from 10% to 20%. So it's the largest or most significant increase other than defense sets. And I'm super excited about it because now what that means is you could build a character with 150% tenacity, and maybe the leader gives them another 50%. And unless that person that you're going against has putting like a full 100% potency, you could actually resist basically all debuffs except for 15% of the time, which is turning the tide, which is the way it should be. We should be able to modify characters in a way that they either perform positively or resist positively those detrimental effects. That's kind of the whole point of mods to begin with. So I like the balancing in every way. With the exception of potency, I felt like it was pretty powerful already and didn't really need a modification, but they did only bump it by 5%, where tenacity got a 10-point boost.
You kind of just like proactively answered my next question about the potency and tenacity. If you guys are unfamiliar with potency versus tenacity, we're going to link Warrior's video that he put out a few months ago. And it is probably the best video in all of the YouTube land concerning that topic. It's really something you guys need to understand, especially with these the new mod loadouts, the new stat bonuses. So this is something definitely you guys should watch if you have not. Okay, we've talked about the primaries, right? But let's go down to the secondaries. And now when you take these mods from, the gold 5 dot and you slice them up to 6E mods, now they're called, certain stats are getting boosted differently, like health percentage. They seem to be balancing out, because traditionally you don't want health percentage, you want flat health. You don't want offense percentage, you want flat offense. But now, like in terms of, like I just mentioned, health percentage, when you convert the mods to 6 dots, the health percentage gets an 86% increase, whereas the health of the flat stat gets 26, right? Offense percentage gets a 202% increase when you bring them up to the 6 dot, whereas the flat offense just gets 10%. Do you think that they've balanced this well? Do you think that the flat stats are still the way to go, the current state of the game?
What I like about it is simplicity, right? The less we need to think the better it is. And I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion. I mean that in the I'm new to the game, or I'm playing but I don't have time to memorize all this. And like the days of us having to sit down and do 7 mathematical equations for one mod loadout for one character to try to figure out is offense percentage going to end up being off a base offense higher than or lower than my flat offense that I'm going to do. It just you're like, are you serious? So what happens, right? People playing the game just go, who cares? Let's just put mods on and I'm just gonna do my best. Like, so it demotivates people from caring. Well, what's nice about these new balances is they knew where their weaknesses were and where their strengths were, and so they played actually to the weaknesses and bolstered those to create a more even balance in secondary stats, which is super important, right? Because but before we kind of figured out that if you had 100 offense, that was better than a 2% offense boost for most cases. And so we learned flat, right? Do defense flat or health flat. Well, that's not the case anymore with the new mod sets. We're going to be able to roll them up and balance out the set entirely. So it will be a little bit less important to look for stats such as flat stats, things like that, because you will, once you make that set, a 6E mod, it's going to be more balanced. If you do notice too, it will provide an extra speed, 1 extra speed. It's actually providing less than 1 speed, but because of the way math works and it rounds up, it'll give you an extra speed boost. You'll get 1 extra speed. So for all those people worried about the Krakens and whales and all of those people, getting a bunch of this extra material, which I don't believe they'll be able to get their hands on very easily either, I believe that even at the highest end, it will create a slightly more balanced character, but not in the way the speed used to be such a critical piece. I mean, if their set goes up, it gets 2. If the secondary goes up, it gets 1. There's 3 extra speed maximum, and that is great that they're not taking it to a 10 or a 15 speed boost. In fact, I believe those Gear 12 Plus pieces are far more overpowered and off balancing than the new mod sets that they have created for
absolutely.
us.
God, yeah, for sure. Okay, so when you let's say you roll and you're gambling, you're testing your luck, trying to get some new mods. So if a mod doesn't have, like, if you get a gold mod now, it doesn't have any speed on it, is it automatically a turnoff, or do these mods, these gold mods without the speed, without the flat offense, do these have way more value than they did prior to this change? Or are you still looking for speed and offense?
So I know their heart was to create a world, utopian type world, where speed no longer mattered. And I think there will always be a few characters where that may be the case, such as B2 Battle Droid or something, because it's all about, it takes many turns regardless of its speed, and you're really looking for protection and potency, right? Because you want to accentuate the strengths or bolster the weaknesses of a character. But at the end of the day, the majority of this content that matters to the player is territory wars and arenas. And what happens in those environments is it bottom line comes down to which teams get to impose their will first. And those teams imposing their will first, the other stats really matter less. So speed always will be a factor in the PvP environment. So sadly, I don't think with this balancing, it's going to change the way I look at mods at all. It simply will help me kind of level out all of my mod sets to where they're kind of more well-rounded at the end of it. But again, I think this is going to be almost as difficult to acquire as the new Gear 12 Plus pieces, as far as getting a full set rolled all the way up in beta. And they have now since said we can talk about beta. I did farm for all the pieces, and I found it relatively easy to get the 1, 2, and 3 pieces, but the 4th piece, that gold piece, to get it to the 6E level, nearly impossible to drop. I almost never saw it drop after. You get it like at once, right? You get the first battle, you always get like that one-time bonus. You get it then, but after that, you start doing subsequent, going on that, farming it. I couldn't get it to drop. It was nearly impossible. It was really difficult. So, I mean, I'm hoping they look at that. There has been feedback from us to them saying, hey, that's got to be a little improved. I mean, think about it, 158 characters to date, I believe, is what my swgoh.gg said this morning when I looked at my characters. And if 158 characters have 6 mods, I mean, I don't even want to do the math. That's like 900 mods. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's like 900 mods, and every mod is going to have to be rolled up. And so we're talking about thousands upon thousands of this piece that we're going to need to, complete these loadouts. And so I do hope they take a look at the drop rates. That's the only, concern I really had when in beta. The rest of it, I loved, and I felt like they listened to us. We did 2 runs of beta, and the first run of beta, we couldn't filter through like basic stuff like speed, and I was like, I want to look at speed secondaries, and then I want it to put my highest speed secondary mods on the top. Like, I don't want to have to dig through every mod. It makes no sense. So then through, beta 2, that's what they did. They actually built it out. Oh, it's almost identical to swgoh.gg. And now when I click speed secondary, I can see who they're on, and my highest is at the top because you can filter in that way. And so while it may not be perfect, I'm super excited to have what they have built as an addition, because it has to be an improvement. It's like simming Galactic War. If anyone says that's not an improvement, they're just on crack. They just need to go.
Well, the filtering system, all the fancy mod slicing and all the stat boosts, this is actually the part I'm most excited about. Like, if I want to remod my characters, like let's say I'm building a team, I'm reluctant to do it unless I'm sitting right in front of a computer with swgoh pulled up, the GG site. So now I can just do it, sitting on the couch. They basically imported that entire filtering system into the game now, and I think that's actually the coolest part of this whole thing. Like, everything's accessible. You can see the mods that are on your characters, not only the ones just that you have in your inventory, but you also get to see the ones that are physically on your characters. You can swap them right over. This is pretty excited about this update.
What's even better about it than swgoh is swgoh can only import what's equipped. So up to this point, everybody's had to take their characters to level 50 and drop their secondary mods into those mods, even if they don't make sense, just so that way they could sync them to swgoh. With this system, because it's Capital Games' system, it sees every mod in your inventory, period, regardless of whether it's equipped or not. So that way it's a more complete experience. Because what if you just got a mod that was 19 plus speed and it hasn't been equipped yet? swgoh doesn't see it, but the game does, and it will show unequipped, and it will show where it's at, and so you can find it with relative ease. So it's, for me, all of it is great. Plus, sometimes they're like, hey, you got a tank in arena, and maybe you want it like a 120 tenacity tank with lots of protection and tenacity, and you switch to a whole new team from Jedi to Sith, or from Sith to Jedi. Well, now you kind of have to, pull all of them off and pull the other ones off and put the ones on. Now you can just click a character, hit add switch to this mod loadout, and boom, it's done. It's just an instantaneous thing. There is some credits involved. I think it was like 86,000 credits or something like that, but it's not horrible. And it's just nice to know you can move entire sets, and you can create as many tabs as you want, and you can create as many mod loadouts within each tab as you would like. So you can even create tabs now for certain categories. For people that really mod share, they use their mods on lots of different characters for different reasons. This is going to become critical. For me, a little bit less so, because I kind of mod a character and leave them alone, even if they're not optimally modded, because I just don't have the time for modding. But that might change with all of these new tools.
Okay, I actually have one question that I realized during the interview. Are set bonuses going to be in effect as soon as the update happens on our level 15 mods, or are they only on 6 dot mods? Sorry, on our 5 dot mods, or are they only on 6 dot mods?
No, it should apply instantaneously to every mod in existence in the game, because those sets will no longer be worth the old values. The new values will be imported, and so the new values should be instantly imported, because it's a permanent change to the entire mod system values.
Yes. And then I think we talked about set bonuses, and then we talked about bonuses to the secondaries when moving from 5A to 6E. But I don't think we talked about the primaries, the change in the primaries. Not. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Cool. I'm so excited about you mentioned defense. I'm so excited about health. That huge health jump from 5.88 to 16% on a primary, I think is going to be absolutely game changing.
No, I'm excited about it too because think about it. One of the things that we've desperately needed, because it's really, if you look at every character, health is really low, protection's really high. I mean, you could have a 26,000 health character, but they've got 57,000 protection, and there's a lot of new mechanics that have been introduced into the game that really attack the health of a character, such as Sith Raid, and it's really difficult to have teams viability and longevity. But if you can get characters' overall health pools up into the 30,000, 35,000, you see them start to have a little more durability and resiliency in those raids for you to go to timing out and actually getting a maximum amount of damage from that team. And so with these health primaries and secondaries going up, it's going to give you that. It's balancing that out a little bit more. Defense is going up, of course. Critical damage is in the primary is actually going to go up by 6%. Not a lot, but it'll feel like a lot for sure. And tenacity is going up by 10 or 11, excuse me, from the 24% to 35%. Again, they're really dosing the tenacity heavily, so it's going to help you counteract that potency, because potency is going from the 24% it was to only 30. So there's actually a 6-point gain where the tenacity has an 11-point gain. Combine that with the secondaries and the mod sets, it's a significant ability to now be able to grow your tenacity higher than individuals' potency that you're going against. I'm glad speed only went up to 32 from 30, because that's speed's one of those things that's like, that's the part that most people complain about because it's free to play. If they've got 2 sets that are over 80, they're happy. And then like with me, it's like I'm trying to get over 100 is my goal for arena. And then there's people in my arena that are over 135, with all 5 people over 135. So speed really needed to not get a whole big boost. But at the same time, if you're getting all that ability and you're maxing out this one mod set, a little boost to speed is kind of a pat on the back. Congratulations, you now have a super shiny 6E mod set. So pretty cool there. And then accuracy is going up a lot. I can see a lot of people possibly starting to theory craft around accuracy and the benefits of that with their accuracy arrows. Same thing with crit avoidance. It's going from 24% to 35%. Think about combining that with a Treya lead. I mean, especially with Sith Trooper sitting in the background with a critical arrow on him plus under Treya lead. I mean, it could be interesting to see people trying to take out a tank that's gaining more health than you're able to dish damage to. So really interested to see some of the theories that come out of the new accuracy and crit avoidance bumps. And then protection didn't get touched much, and it shouldn't. It was the most overpowered stat, in my opinion, up to this point. It's really easy to stack a character with just a ridiculous amount of protection. So the health increase was really needed, but protection, yeah, not so much.
Okay, so let me ask you, outside of Arena, do you see there being any other game mode in the entire game where protection is still the choice for the circle? Or is it after these changes, is it going to be health circle on everybody except your arena team? Like with all the health steal, a lot of these Gear 12 pieces give tons and tons of health, especially the Gear 12 plus stuff. Is health going to become the stat you're looking for protection outside of arena?
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance, especially because the PvE content is really more geared towards damaging straight towards health and or bypassing health or things like that. Protection becomes less important if you have a higher health pool, but that's why protection was so much of a crutch, was because you didn't have a huge health pool and you had to protect it with the protection. And then we found those characters getting totally destroyed once they hit the Sith raid, because their weakness that we were able to shore up was just totally exposed by the Sith raid. But you're right. I actually see protection going to the wayside for most things, except for a few characters for sure in Territory Wars, and of course still Arena. I think there will still be a bit of durability that you get from kind of having that hard external shell on a character that you have to go through first, especially like the Bastila leads. But the thing with that is, which is so kind of weird, I still don't understand why it's coded this way, is a lot of that bonus protections characters get is actually based on their health, not protection. And so some of those teams, you'll see a complete elimination of protection secondaries in favor of health, because they're actually going to get more bonus protection, which is that purple protection, which is going to be significantly higher with the higher health pools. Bastila will be the new meta when these mods change, and I don't think they will have seen it being the permanent change, but I personally believe it will be the permanent change that overrides Darth Treya, and I don't think it'll be intentional on their part, but if people mod correctly, the Bastila leads need a little bit of help to get over that Treya-led battle, but not. I don't believe with a proper modding with the new mod sets that it will. I believe it will be strong enough that it will be able to even overcome the Treya leads, which is pretty significant. I was going to say what people will do is they'll do Bastila lead, but then they'll probably replace Ezra. Even though he hits for 80, 90,000, they'll probably replace him with Darth Nihilus, and then they'll pretty much guaranteed be able to win on offense every time, and on defense just be so absolutely annoying, if not impossible to beat because of the ticking time bomb that is Nihilus. And he's going to be getting all those bonuses that are being shared by Grandmaster Yoda and Bastila. So it'll be an interesting future meta for sure after these mods change.
All right, one more question for you, man. We get a lot of questions about how these mods, the 6 mods, will impact the command or the pilots for these ships. It might be a whole interview in itself, but can you outline any relationship between the mods, the new mods, and how it will affect ships? I mean, will we be getting more speed? Will they be hitting harder, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to break it down in layman's terms, and I hope this helps everybody to understand it. There's actually science to it, but we're just going to skip that and go to a more simplistic explanation. So your ship brings in its ship stats, and the character brings in character stats, and they're combined for a total stat that you have for example, speed and health and protection from your ship. That all comes from the damage. It all comes from a combination. Now the ship at some point will be maxed 7-star with maxed abilities, yada yada yada. So 70% approximate of the ship's capability, we're talking health, protection, damage, speed, comes from the actual crew member. That's being imported into that equation, and the crew member has a galactic power, right, of a certain amount. And I'm just going to make it easy, although I'm going to be totally wrong, but I'm just going to go simplistic so people can see this visually. Let's pretend every 1,000 galactic power, the character gets to bring another 10,000 health and another single speed, right? So you can get another 10,000 health and speed for every 1,000 GP. So the character's now at 5,000 GP. It's bringing in that extra health and that extra 5 speed because of that. Now that's a wrong equation, but that's just to kind of show people the higher your galactic power on a character goes, the more it's contributing to the health, protection, damage, speed, that it's contributing to the ship's overall capability. So if you look at characters, there are times when a character needs to hit the next galactic power threshold, and it's going to require a Zeta to get there. So if you put the Zeta on, you get that extra speed and that extra health for the ship. If you don't put it on there, you're going to be one slower than the other person. With mods and the Gear 12.5 pieces, they add galactic power, and quite a bit, the pretty significant boosts to your galactic power on your crew member. With that, it's going to possibly increase your galactic power on your crew member enough to get to the next threshold that will give you more contributions towards those stats. But the exact number of GP per person and stuff, it's all got to be data mined, and we've got to have an exact stat sheet to show you exactly where the thresholds lie. But just so people understand, every little thing you do to a crew member, they import that in to the ship, but not everything you do will necessarily be reflected, because it's kind of like a bank. You're trying to get to $100 to cash out. You may be at like $88 and you need $12 more. So those $12 are somewhere of development with your character. It could be adding the mods, it could be the next Zeta, it could be something that puts you over that gets you that next stat boost. I hope that kind of in layman's terms helps people understand that everything they do, including these new mod bumps, are going to help their overall galactic power of the character, which is then going to help their overall stats. And it depends on where they lie as to whether the amount they get increase is actually going to get them to the next tier of bonuses or not. Good example of that is, you can go from like 16,000 galactic power to 18,000 galactic power by going from Gear 10 to Gear 12. But you could keep that same Gear 10 character, put a Zeta on and get 2500 galactic power and get the same bonuses as the person with no Zeta at gear 12. So how you get to your highest level is depending on how you've developed the character. But at the end of the day, everything you do will contribute towards total GP, and your total GP as it climbs will continue as it hits thresholds to contribute to the overall strength and durability and speed of the ship that it's involved with.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't covered as of yet?
Actually, no, I just wanted to thank you both for having me on. I really appreciate what you're doing for the community. I love your videos. You guys are very thorough and concise and do a very good job articulating and demonstrating things for the community. So you're a definite, blessing to the community for sure. They're all lucky to have you.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm sure we are all well-versed on the whereabouts of Warrior's channel, but please, if you haven't yet, make sure you check out his videos on mods, especially the one on Potency and Tenacity. That will help greatly with the new relevance of these statistics within the game. I've included the link to any videos referenced in our interview, including Warrior's mod management guide in the description below. We invite you to share this video with your guild and in your favorite chat rooms. We have a ton of content planned that you will not want to miss, so like and subscribe to get updates when more videos are released.